after the movie, I went home. I was thinking about it. I was like, yeah, like I think I got feelings for my coworker. Ha 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 ha. This is ha 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 ha. I played myself.
She got vibes, vibes on vibes. Pull up in the whip, come slide. Peace on high, brand new for my ride. Yeah, the best outside. 3 V's right outside. Yeah, you see me now.
Hey guys, it's your girl Ari. In today's video, we'll be doing another girl chat story times. My story time is actually a spicy one. This happened the end of last year, so end of 2020, beginning of 2023. But I'm going to tell you guys a little story time how I fell in love with someone while being with someone else. So okay, full disclosure, I would not recommend this at all. Like, falling out of love with your partner and then falling in love with someone else is a crazy ass time, okay? It will put you through a bunch of emotional whirlwinds and you would just feel like it's a lot going on, because a lot was going on. So full story time, I'm gonna talk about what happened earlier last year where I had a partner but I fell in love with someone else. So let's get started. This one's really spicy. I got in a relationship with someone January 2023 with this amazing person. We're gonna call her Carol. Carol's about 3 years older than me. She's really sweet, really nice, fairly attractive. I met her through Tinder. So we went on one date on Tinder and yeah, things went well. We were dating for about 3 months before we became official, and we became official in January. We had spent New Year's together, so that established a stone. Like, okay, I really like it here. I haven't been in a relationship in a while. Like, this is my vibe. Before Carol, I was in a relationship with a narcissistic piece of shit, just straight up. That was for a year and a half. So in between him and Carol, I want to say there was about at least 7 months. And I thought that was enough time for me to start dating again. So when Carol wanted to be exclusive, wanted us to be together, I was like, okay, I can do this. She really made me feel safe, comfortable. She took very good care of me. Carol, she's amazing. Full disclosure, guys, Carol is living her best life. I'm living my best life. There's no bad blood. Out the blue, she might tell me hi, and out the blue, I might tell her hello, and we might check in like maybe every couple months or so, but we're not like talking every day or anything. Like, no, we're our separate lives. I was with Carol, and at the time of me and Carol getting together, I was getting really close with another person at my job. Person at my job, we're gonna call her, India. Perfect. So, little backstory. India and I got fairly close towards the end of 2022, borderline 2023, because at my job, we do this thing where the labs will shut down for like a month or two for some deep cleaning, and we have a lot of free time. But, you know, they can't let us go on vacation or send us home, so we're coming into work doing like modules, we're doing trainings, we're just trying to occupy that time we're not in lab. India and I, during this time, we bonded fairly close. While I'm dating Carol, I'm getting close with India. We had actually started becoming closer when they had asked me for my phone charger. And that sparked the conversation, and we've been fairly close since then. Full disclosure, I didn't start seeing India in a romantic light until fairly later on in our friendship. So off rip, we were just friends. I wasn't seeing India in that light. Like, I knew that she was attractive, I knew she was pretty, but like, I didn't automatically think like, okay, this is someone I'm interested in because I was with Carol. So as I'm getting closer to India and we're starting to get to know each other, I started to notice that we have a lot of similarities. We have very similar life goals, aspirations, and she was just cool. So I'm like, okay, like, I can keep her as a friend. So a couple of weeks went by. Carol and I, we started to drift apart a bit because I had transitioned schedules. So I went from working a regular 9 to 5 to working a 2 to 11. So I couldn't see Carol as much. So we stopped spending as much time together. And the only time I would have is like the weekend. And even so, it just didn't feel like that much time because the weekends for me were a combination of catching up on errands as well as seeing my friends. So like squeezing Carol in was getting a bit difficult. She worked a 8 to 4, so she worked earlier in the day. So by the time she gets out of work, I'm already in lab, I'm working. So our work schedules brought some tension in our relationship. It was hard to maneuver. There'll be nights where she'll like come over, but even on the nights that she'll come over and would like hang out, eat, watch a movie, it would just be really hard because I'll just be tired from work. Work schedule 1 was really, yeah. 2, on top of that, Another issue that we're having in our relationship is that we're both Geminis, okay? I don't think it's best to date in your sign. I don't care. I'm gonna say this to the ends of the earth. I don't think there is much compatibility when you're dating someone of your similar zodiac sign. And I didn't know that until this relationship, because when I tell you we would bump heads, we're both Geminis, so a lot going on. Our communication was mid. And 3, as I started to get to know them even more, I just realized that like we don't share that many similarities. Those 3 factors were very important in the story, okay? So I'm hanging out with Carol. I'm still, that's my girlfriend. I'm trying to, be there, be present, trying to make time, but it's getting increasingly difficult as work started to get more busy. During shutdown, it's very chill. We're hanging out. Cool. Had time to see Carol. I wasn't as drained. But then when shutdown was over and we were back in production, we were working insane hours and I was working overtime. I'll be working 50+ hour weeks because there was a large demand for labor, okay? So that's where I come in. The next thing you know, India and I, we went to brunch once, okay? I didn't see it as a date. I ended up going to get my hair done in Baltimore, and India at the time, she lived in Baltimore, so could you not, my hairdresser, she was running late, so we were scheduled to do my hair at 10 a.m., but she had a dentist appointment at 8 a.m. that ended up extending way longer. Hey, I'm sorry, but can we reschedule to 1 p.m.? And I was like, cool, like that's fine. She offered me like a little discount for the inconvenience, and it was cool. So I had hit up India and I was like, hey, like I'm in your city, like do you want to get some food? It's really early, I haven't ate anything, I'm supposed to get my hair done. India hits me up like, oh hey, yeah. And full disclosure too, India had a girlfriend at the time too. So India had a partner, I had a partner, just vibes. We ended up going to brunch, again, was not looking at them in that light. So we're at brunch and we are just talking, kikiing, hanging out, like chatting, the whole 9 yards. And it's just a good time. Like I was enjoying her company, she was enjoying my company, and we were just having a great time. Even at work, we would like make jokes with each other, text, like we're very playful. So at brunch, it was just a great time. We started like hanging out. I mean, at brunch was a good time, and then I had to go get my hair done. So, we hugged, we said goodbye. Cool. I told Carol that I went to brunch with India, and Carol had started getting some suspicions that something was going on between us, because she was like, oh, like you guys have been getting closer lately, like, and they asked me straight up. I was like, oh, like, do you find this person attractive? And I was like, I don't think they're ugly, but I don't see them in that light, because again, guys, I'm strictly trying to keep this very like platonic. As Carol and I are getting in more disagreements and we're starting to drift, India and I started getting a bit closer. And ironically at the time too, India and their partner, they're going through the motions and they broke up. So India's single. They had told me some information that I'm not going to disclose out of privacy, but they were just single and dingle, okay? And I'm still with my partner, still trying to make it work. India, I and another co-worker, I went to go see Avatar, so the second one with the water. During that movie, it was me, India, my co-worker. India and I are talking throughout the movie. Like, we're just shitty. We're shitty for that. I could tell that my other co-worker was like, they're a little too flirty. And me being flirtatious, because guys, like as a Gemini, I'm very flirty, like full disclosure. I had parked my car a bit farther from the theater because there was no parking when I had arrived, but India found a parking spot right in front of the theater, so they offered me at the end of the movie to drive me to my car. I got in their car, they drove me to my car, and we were just talking for a little bit before I got in my car, and we're just looking at each other, and that's when I knew I had feelings for India. Our vibe together is like insane. Like when I tell you guys, it went from like simply platonic to like transitioning to romance. Like that transition caught me off guard. When I said that I did not intend to fall in love with this girl, like I have mixed feelings with the phrase of you can't control who you fall in love with, because in a way I've been in situations where I am in full control of who I fell in love with, as in like I know what I'm doing and I know what I'm making the time to see. And there was other people where, if I liked them, I would seek them, and that would happen. But with the situation with India, that transition from like friend to like potential love interest, romance, it caught me all the way off guard because we had so many similarities and I wanted to find someone like similar and like friend. I just wanted a friend. I at the time was only in DC for like about a year, so I was starting to make friends, but you know, I was always open to making more friends. And she lived in Baltimore, so I'm like, okay, like that could be my Baltimore friend, but no, that's my lover. Whatever. We're in the car, we're talking to each other, and let me set the scene. We're just looking at each other. Meek is playing in the background. We're just having a moment. And that's when I knew at that moment, I'm like, yeah, I don't see her as a friend. There's something more. Because she's just looking at me. I'm looking at her. The eyes don't lie. When I tell you, you can tell a lot about somebody in terms of like soul seeking, soul searching, the whole 9 yards, just based off like their eyes. And when I was looking at her eyes at that moment, I was like, yeah, there's more to this friendship than I wanted to acknowledge at the time. After the movie, I went home, I was thinking about it, I was like, yeah, like I think I got feelings for my coworker, ha 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 ha, this is, ha 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 ha, I played myself. I was like, you know what, I think I need to ghost her. So I started to stop, so I needed to ghost her to let the feelings die out. So I was like, you know what, we're not gonna talk about it, cool. I didn't bring it up to Carol just yet because I'm like, all right, I can handle this, I can get this under control. So I started talking to India less and less, and I borderline like ghosted her. So when I see her at work, I would talk to her, but outside of work, we weren't texting anymore, we weren't talking, no. It was strictly work related. 2 weeks after the movie, Carol had invited me to a pop-up shop because their sister was selling clothes and I got invited to model some of their clothes. So I was like, okay, cool, like this will be fun. So I'm going with Carol to the pop-up shop. Come to find out, India went with their partner to the pop-up shop. So our partners are meeting each other, y'all. When I tell you this shit was messy, this shit was so messy. I'm looking at India's looking at me, and they were like, oh, so like, you know, you have a girlfriend. I didn't know. I disclosed to them that I had a girlfriend, and we talked about this later on because she swears to this day that I didn't say that I had a girlfriend, but screenshots don't lie. Literally having our text messages that I disclosed that I had a partner. So we're at this pop-up shop, and it's a little awkward. So I'm smiling at people, being, you know, positive. I'm trying to sell these clothes, trying to help my girlfriend's sister out, you know, keep it positive. And then we got India's partner selling their paintings, since they draw, in the other corner, and I'm just like, yo. So our partners meet each other, they greet each other, it's going. And then mid-conversation I'm having with India's partner, my partner Carol just leaves. So Carol does this thing where I think she has social anxiety, so anytime she gets overwhelmed or doesn't want to be necessarily in a space, she just goes. So mid-conversation, didn't tell me nothing, she just left. And I was a bit embarrassed because now it's just me with India and their partner, and I'm still trying to hold a conversation. And then I excused myself politely, and I went to go find Carol. I put Carol to the side, and I was like, hey, like, why did you leave? And she was just like, oh, well, I don't really know these people. It felt kind of awkward. And I was like, yo, like, this is my first time meeting India's partner. Like, I don't know her, but I was still trying to stay. Like, I wish she would have, you know, told me something, or I don't know, just said something instead of abruptly leave. So she had apologized to me, whatever. We're enjoying the time. During my break, so I take a little break, I started strolling around to see other people's exhibits, our arts, to see what they're selling, etc., etc. So I'm walking around, doing my rounds, and I bump into India. And India, she was also doing the rounds, and she's sipping something. I think she was sipping some wine. She asked me if I wanted some, so I took a little sip. And we're talking for a little bit, and then I could notice that Carol's just staring at us from across the room, and I'm like, okay, this is bad. After I had a brief conversation with India, I was like, oh, hey, like, I gotta go sell clothes, but I'll see you later. And my awkward ass, I just, you know, went back to the clothing thing, and I could tell that Carol's just in a bad mood. And I was like, yo, I think she knows. I think she fucking knows. At that moment, I was like, at that moment when she was staring at India and I was like, yeah, she knows. She knows there's something going on. I'm trying to cheer up Carol, trying to, you know, people please the situation. Like, I know we're gonna have to have a conversation after this, but let me bring her in a good mood. Wasn't in a good mood. We ended up leaving after we helped her sister put away her clothes. She sold a bunch of clothes that night. I helped sell some hoodies. I really pushed for this beanie sale, so there was these beanies, and I pushed it through, and I got that sale for her, so that felt really nice. So then Carol and we ended up going back to the house, as in my house, and we had a conversation. I was like, she was like, oh, like that's your coworker, so this is the one you've been getting close to. And I'm like, yeah. And she's just like, oh, like, do you have feelings for them? She asked me, and I told her, yeah. Let's take a step back. When I tell you guys this is the most awkward conversation I had, and I was so uncomfortable, guys. I was very uncomfortable. I was like, yo, like, I messed up. Like, this is crazy. I'm like, yo, do I deny it or do I just keep it a G? So I was like, yo, yeah, in my living room in DC, she's standing, I'm standing, we're staring eye to eye. She's about like 5'8", 5'9", I'm 5'5", so I'm like looking up, looking at her, she's looking at me, and I told her straight up, I was like, hey, like, yeah, I do have feelings for this person. And when I tell you, shorty was pissed, Carol was pissed. Like, I was waiting for her to like take her shit and just dip and be like, fuck you, I don't want nothing to do with you, but she was pissed, but she handled it calmly. So you could be calmly pissed, I feel like. And she was like, oh, since when? Like, when did you know? And I was like, I'm gonna be honest with you, like, I knew this about 2 weeks ago. I was giving her space to respect our relationship. I wasn't trying to entertain this. I want to be with you, but all of this is just overwhelming, and I'm sorry I didn't tell you when I first knew. I thought I could handle it. I went full accountability mode with her, and I just kept it very transparent. I was like, yo, like, I'm really sorry that I didn't tell you sooner. I thought I could handle it, but I can't. I do have feelings for this person, but even though I have feelings for this person, I still want to be with you. So after some awkward staring, so Carol's staring at me, I'm staring at her, and she's very awkward. She's just like, I need some time to process. I'm gonna go. And I was like, okay, cool. So she gathered all the things, she left. And later that night, she was just blowing on my phone like, oh, I knew this. You should have said something. You guys were starting to spend too much time together. Do you not love me anymore? And like really like hurt. And I understood where her hurt was coming from. So I'm trying to console her and trying to tell her like, hey, like, this is really unfortunate, but I had to keep it a buck with you. I thought I had it under control, but I didn't. And I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. And I was like, yo, like, I'll give you some time to process. We could decide what we want to do moving forward. At this point in time, I did not want to break up with Carol. I was a bit ashamed of myself because I did catch feelings for someone while in a relationship. And honestly, guys, looking back at it now, I should have just left. I should have just let the situation for what it is. I clearly wasn't in love with Carol, because if you're in love with someone, like if you're actually in love with someone, deeply in love with someone, I don't think you can catch feelings for someone else. The feelings that I was feeling towards India, they weren't like infatuation. Like I wasn't infatuated with her. Like I was actually falling in love with her, and they were getting deep. So I didn't want to lie and live two lives, knowing what it was. Carol ended up giving me another chance. She's like, okay, like I still want to be with you too, but you need to cut off India. So that's what I did. I cut off India. Like fully cut off. Like I told India straight up, like out of respect for my relationship, like I can't do this with you no more. As in, like I have feelings for you, but I can't act on them. And when I disclosed that I had feelings for them, they disclosed to me that they have feelings back, and I was like, yo, I can't entertain this. Like, so I ended up blocking India for a little bit as in 2 weeks, and I started focusing more on my relationship. So Kara and I started spending way more time together. Like we were squeezing it, but we were trying to really get back on her good side, because I'm like, yo, like this is someone I do want to be with. Like let me keep going. But the more and more I forced myself to try to fix my relationship with Carol, the more I started to realize that I wasn't really happy in the relationship. I started to notice that it started to feel forced. No relationship should feel forced. When you love someone, anything you do for them should feel authentic, and it should feel natural. It should flow. And our relationship at the time, it wasn't flowing at all anymore. We weren't a good match. I tried to rebuild things for about like 3 weeks, and granted, I know I could have given more time, but as I was talking to my therapist even about my relationship, she was just giving me the advice that like, if you're unhappy, it doesn't matter how much time you give the situation. Unhappiness is unhappiness. The relationship is no longer serving you. And I'm talking to my therapist, I'm telling her how I feel, and she just keeps reminding me that like, yo, it's not the end of the world to break up with her. You're not obligated to stay with her. Just because you love her doesn't mean you love her enough to stay in the relationship. You need to respect yourself enough to know that your happiness comes before hers. Stop putting hers over yours. And I was just sitting with that advice, and I took an edible. I know, y'all, my story times is crazy. I went to Top Golf with some of my friends. At the end of Top Golf, I ended up breaking up with this person. Took an edible, and it just made me think clear. And I was like, yo, I'm unhappy in this relationship. I don't want to be in this no more. this is not serving me, so I ended up breaking up with Carol. I don't like hurting people. I felt really shitty about it for a couple weeks after, and I held on to that guilt for a couple months. So yeah, Carol took it fairly well. I had called her over to my house, but we ended up having that conversation in her car because she didn't want to come into my house. I had returned all her items, given her back all her things, and we sat down and we had a conversation. It doesn't mean that I don't love you any less or I don't care about you, because I do, but this is not sustainable to my growth. This is not conducive to your growth either. Like, it's feeling forced. I shouldn't have to feel forced. I fucked up as in I fell in love with someone else while I was with you, but that should have been my sign to go and to know that this relationship is not for me. And it was hard. She started crying, I started crying, but after the conversation I felt like such a large weight like got off my shoulders, because I was so anxious and so depressed about this. It was like kind of driving me nuts, because I'm like, yo, like, I felt guilty for falling in love with someone else. I felt like shit. I felt like garbage. I felt like I was this terrible person, when in reality, like, shit happens. Looking back at it now, I should have known as soon as I caught feelings for the other person that this relationship was doomed, because you can catch feelings for someone, but to fall in love with someone is different. How I felt about India, like, I was borderline in love with this girl for a very long time. I fell in love with her through time. Whereas with like Carol and stuff, I feel like looking back at it now, we kind of rushed into the relationship, so I got into the relationship a bit too soon. But then also simultaneously with that, I started to see that like our values just weren't the same. I should have asked her a bit more questions regarding our values before we got in a relationship. And looking back at it now, I just know that there's certain values that I can compromise and can't compromise. And me just dating her because I liked her and she made me feel safe, that's not enough to sustain a relationship. I did the best thing for myself, which was to get out the relationship. Carol and I, we are not on bad blood because of the situation. We took some months apart. We reconnected at the end of 2023, and we had like an honest conversation about what everything's going and shit. As for me in India, that's a separate story time for a separate day, but India's doing well. And yeah, that wraps up my story time. I fell in love with someone while in a relationship. For those watching this and are in a similar situation, get out that relationship. If you really loved and respect your partner, you wouldn't put yourself in predicaments to catch feelings for someone else. And if you don't want to get out that relationship, really sit and reevaluate why you're in a relationship, and if you really want to be in a relationship and why. Sit and think, if you're happy in this relationship, is this relationship conducive to your growth? Like, sit and actually have these tough conversations with yourself, because if you don't, you'll end up like me, dippling and dabbling, figuring out what the fuck I'm doing. But again, learning lesson, def, learn my lesson. And yeah, I would not recommend catching feelings for someone while in a relationship. It was very heartbreaking. Like, my head and my heart were hurting chronically. Like, I felt so conflicted on what to do. Def would not recommend that experience to anyone. My head and my heart were at chronic conflict with each other. There were some sleepless nights. My guilt. Whew. Make sure you sit and you think about if this relationship is making you happy. What's your goal for the relationship? Do you see this relationship lasting a year? Or 6 months, a year, 2 years, lifetime? Like, really sit and have these gut-wrenching conversations with yourself and see this is what you want. I couldn't see Carol in my life for more than 6 months, and it was unfortunate. But again, guys, like, sit and really have these honest conversations with yourself, because you are the master of your happiness. You are the master of your fate. You are the master of your destiny, okay? You determine who you want in your life and who you don't want in your life, and that's really just what it is. But yeah, guys, that's the end of my story time. How I caught feelings for my coworker. If you guys like more story times like this, please like, comment, share, subscribe, and until the next video, guys.